Hello friends, I have not made a video in a while and I'm sorry for that. The holidays caught up with me and if you can tell by my voice, I am actually sick. So it might be a little bit raw and I'm sorry for that, but I wanted to get this out there because I had promised it. So without further ado, this is a video talking about how to format ebooks for distribution. The first thing you want to know about formatting your ebooks is that you're going to want to make sure all of your chapters are set up properly. This right here is a draft of my novel Fallen. It is not the final typeset version, which I will be showing, but this is a draft that I was working on. It was one that my editor and I were back and forth on, so if you see comments and stuff in the margins, that's why. I pulled this up as a demonstration piece so that I could show you what needs to happen. The first thing you'll notice here is I have chapter headings actually in a heading style. Text styles are very important when it comes to book formatting, and you are going to want to use a program that allows you to do them. These text styles are available to you in OpenOffice and a number of other programs, but I stick with Word because it is the standard and it's also what I edit in, and it's a program that I'm really familiar with, so it's what I use. Anyway, these text styles here, you can apply them, and the thing about text styles, the reason that they're so powerful is I can take heading 1 and apply it to all my chapter headers, but if I decide I want to change it, I can go in here and change as elements of it, including font, size, spacing, all kinds of other stuff about it. And that's all down here in these different pieces, and color as well. While you can only get so fancy with ebooks because ebooks are subject to users changing the fonts unless you embed the font in the ebook, which you can do but should be done very carefully, you are going to end up with people changing fonts for their own tastes. So it's an accessibility thing too. You want to make sure that the fonts you have in your book are ones that people can read and will find helpful and be able to engage with. So allow people to change that, but recognize if you're setting up headers, you are going to have some control over what they look like in the final product. I don't recommend doing too much with color, though you can, but it is one of the various options you have here. For ebooks, I strongly suggest that you mostly stick to changing the style, the size here. You can change the spacing, or you can add ornamentation to it. You can also change the paragraph formats, which we're going to get to in a minute here. So that's just a quick piece about why you're using these styles. If you change everything manually, like if I highlight this and just change the font and everything up here in this box, it does different things in the code when you turn this file into an ebook. So the thing is ebooks, so far as I know, I'm not a code expert, so if one is, please correct me, but CSS is the main language used for ebooks. And CSS is essentially a collection of templates, and it'll recognize heading 1 here as a template. It'll make a category or a class in CSS and apply that to the text. If you do it manually, it makes it a lot harder and it won't be as consistent, so that is something really important to know. Now, once you have your headers set up, you're going to go through and make sure all of your chapter starts here are the heading you choose. I suggest heading 1, but you can make it whatever you would like. If you are a book doing nonfiction, you are probably going to want to leave heading 1 for chapters and then do heading 2 or heading 3 for other subheadings. So make sure your class is useful, particularly if you are going to be doing this as a PDF. As you can see here, in Word, I can open a navigation pane and I can see all of my chapters and I can jump to them. As you can see here, it goes from chapter 21 to chapter 33. I obviously have not made some of these into chapter headers properly. So this is a draft. My editor and I were working on it, so this is one of the reasons I pulled this up. So you can see that there are errors in this, and I'd have to go through and make sure that this is one of the chapter headings, and I would like it to be heading 1, please. Okay, maybe this particular heading is, there we go. This is, I'm not sure how this ended up with so many headings in this. I'm not sure what happened to this document that I broke, but it is a thing. So if you open navigation, the way you get there is you go up to View, and you're going to click on navigation pane up here, and it will pull this out to let you see all of the headings. And if you do it that way, also you can see all your pages and all kinds of other stuff, but navigation will let you see all your headings and make sure they all add up. Another thing you want to be aware of is your first paragraph after your chapter heading should not be indented. If this is indented, if I open a book, if I buy a book and I see that your first line of your chapters is indented, I will immediately know that it was not done by a professional. That is an immediate giveaway. The reason you don't indent it for the first one is it creates this visual cohesion to the start of the chapter. Indenting it means that it will look like everything else down here, but not indenting the first line sets it apart from everything else on a visual level. You would use this same technique on scene breaks. I believe this chapter has a scene break in it, or one near here does. I'm just going to skip this in the video. Okay, here we have a scene break, and as you can see, I have done the same thing again, where I have made sure that the scene break does not have any indentation. Now, you can just drag it over up here with the bar to move the indentation if you want to, or you can create a text style that does not have indentation. This particular document does not have one in it at the moment, but when I was preparing this for print, I don't remember if I gave myself one or not, but it is a useful tool. Again, you can just click on it and it'll remove the indentation at the beginning of the paragraph. Once you have gone through and made sure your paragraphs, your chapter breaks, your scene breaks, all of these things are properly indented or not, you are going to need to start thinking about the layout of an ebook. And from here, I'm going to switch over to the final typeset version so I can show you what the pieces you need to have in here are and what they look like. All right, this is the final typeset version for ebook that I have created in Word for my novel Fallen. As you can see, I have a title here in a neat font. This font is called Requiem. It is a free font, and I have embedded this into my document so that it should show on everybody's things. In a document for typesetting, you are going to need to have a title page. So a page that is nothing but the title of your book and your name. Those are important things. The page after the title page should be your attributions page, your copyright. This is the front matter. If you don't know what that is, it is, if you open any book on your shelf, you're going to see a page very much like this at the start of all of them. It will contain the copyright. It will contain the name of the publisher, usually. If it's fiction, it often contains a little disclaimer saying that, no, this is fiction, and if this looks or sounds or is like anybody else, it's not supposed to be. I'm not trying to claim any of this is real. In this one, I have an attribution to the New International Version of the Bible because I have quotes in here from the Bible. I have an attribution to my cover designer, who is tremendous, by the way. Angel Leia is fantastic. I have the website of the publishing company, and below that I have the ISBN. These are all things that you should put up here in the front matter. This is not your dedication or acknowledgments. This is basically a legal document talking about your copyright. While it is true that the minute you create copyright, it is applied to the document, and putting this in here isn't actually necessary. It is good form, and it is kind of important, and not having this at the beginning of any particular book is a quick way for me to identify when a publisher or author is not particularly experienced, because they won't have this a lot of the time. So if I see a book go out without this, I will know that person is not a professional, and this book was not typeset by a professional. The page after that I have is my dedications, which is, you know, the mushy stuff, acknowledgments. I have an author's note talking about how book reviews are extremely helpful, so please leave them. This is not necessary, but a lot of authors put this in the beginning or at the end of the book to remind people, please leave book reviews, because book reviews are, as we know, extremely important to our getting noticed by the algorithm and thusly our visibility. Following that, we have the table of contents. This right here is absolutely required in any ebook. If you have nothing else up at the front, you need to have a table of contents, because these links are what allow the ebook software to help people go to chapters. It'll, you know how if you pull up an ebook, you can open it and see a list of the chapters and just click on which chapter you want to go to. If you've lost your place, that is what this is. This table of contents is created by using chapter headers. Now, in this book, I did do a drop cap initially. I ended up having to remove it because it just looks funky, but it is, I believe, in there. You can do drop caps effectively by using CSS, but if I take this and put it over into my program, sometimes it goes a little funny. So I've stopped doing drop caps for ebooks, even though I like the way they look. However, we have our table of contents. The way you do the table of contents, if I wanted to add something to it, right? So I'm going to add a link to chapter 1. I don't know why it's a link right now, but okay. You would go up here to insert, link, you click on that. You're going to go down here to place in this document. As you can see, every single one of the headings is a place you can link to in this document. All of them are. So I will click on chapter 1, since that's what I want to link to, and hit OK. And that way, if I hit this by control click, it will take me directly to chapter 1. That is how you do a table of contents in Word to allow people to access this. And that is a very important piece of the whole thing when it comes to typesetting. Once you have your table of contents created, you've done all of your headings, you've put in all of your pieces, you have your title page, your copyright page, or your front matter, your dedication, and all of these pieces all together, this is the point at which I export my book. So, in order to do that, I use a program called Calibre, C-A-L-I-B-R-E, and I'm going to show you that right now. All right, this is Calibre, C-A-L-I-B-R-E, right here. It is an ebook library software. It'll allow you to pull all of your ebooks in here, and you can read any of them. As you can see, I have a lot of books in here. Some of these are ones that I have worked on. Some of these are books that I just have downloaded to my computer and purchased. And over the years, I have a much bigger library in other places, but this is what I currently have in Calibre. Adding a book to Calibre is simple. You just click Add Books, go into your file structure, choose the book you want to add. Currently, it is set to book 2 of my series. There you go. You find your file an ebook, and it will import this into Calibre. Here it is up here at the top. Now, in order to make all of this work, and in order to really make the ebook look correct, we're going to go in here and we're going to edit the metadata. Doing that means you can add your cover to the book, so it will embed the cover in the book. There it is. You can put your title. It would be Fallen, not Fallen ebook. My name is not Elizabeth Felt, it is E. Brabilski, and I would put that up here in authors. You can add the series name, what number in the series it is, and a bunch of other different pieces and parts. Which is, yay, all done. So once you've finished all of these fields, you can hit OK. It will save it, and as you can see here, it will show that. And then you're going to take this document that you have and convert it into from a docs to any of the various different formats you would like your ebook to be. I usually stick with EPUB, to be honest with you, because the vast majority of the places that I would ever put my book just use EPUB. And while I could use the AZW3 format, it isn't necessary. Mobi has been removed, so I don't really need to change it into all of these formats. I mostly just need to turn it into EPUB. In this space, you can change certain elements of the book while it is changing things. So you can have it so that people can't change the size of the font in their ebook reader. I don't suggest you do that because it will mean that people cannot make it more accessible for themselves. If you have specific fonts you're using and you want to embed them, this is where you do it. Embed all fonts in document. This will allow you to embed the fonts here. However, it does, as you can see, only work with certain formats, so EPUB, AZW3, Docs, and PDF. If you're using other things, it won't work. It also has a helpful reminder, making sure that you have the proper licensing for the fonts you use, because if you don't have the proper licensing, you are committing copyright infringement and can get sued. And just because a font comes with Microsoft Word doesn't mean you're allowed to use it in this capacity. So double check all of your fonts. You can change things like the text, it'll smarten punctuation, which means it'll take straight quotes and make them curly, or apostrophes, commas, and so on. You can tell it to unsmarten punctuation if you would like not fancy quotes and dashes and so on to be just plain. Some of that may be a matter of a simplistic presentation. Other people like it more complicated. I'm not sure why you would want to unsmarten your punctuation, but I can imagine it would be useful for some folks. Here you can tell it to not have spacing between paragraphs or to add a space between paragraphs. Styling, if you do CSS, you can change the CSS styling and stuff in here custom-wise. It is available to you. You can mess with the styles and the transforming things. Like, there's a bunch of things you can add. I don't really mess with most of that stuff. Generally speaking, I don't mess with any of these things. I don't tell it to auto-generate a table of contents because I do that manually. Now, you can do that in this if you have it set up for headers. It will automatically generate a table of contents, but you will have less control over it, so I prefer to do it by hand. And you have a few different options, like with an Ebook output, you can flatten it so that there's not a whole bunch of files in here. You can tell it when not to split, so if you don't want to have chapter breaks when you do a page break, you can do all of that stuff in here. Again, I don't, generally speaking, add all of those things. I typically will just double check the metadata looks right, maybe embed fonts if I have any special fonts, and then you just hit OK. And down here it'll have a little spinning wheel letting you know that it's doing its job. Eventually, it will finish doing its job, and you will be able to open the file and view it. And here we have the ebook version of Fallen. As you can see, with this one, I did actually embed the fonts. And this is what it looks like at this size. Here's our table of contents. And this time, the drop caps worked, so I kept them. As you can see here, you can change the size of the box to see what it will look like on various different screens. And that's pretty much it. It's extremely simple. Now, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, or if you notice that there's a problem in here and you have a typo that you need to correct, that's really easy to work out. You just right-click and go down to Edit Book. That will open another window. And over here, all of these index splits, these are actually every single page break. And as you can see, I inserted a page break after every single one of these pieces. I didn't mention this earlier, but at the end of your chapters, make sure you insert a page break because it will force the chapter onto the next page and not have you just keep scrolling. I should have mentioned that sooner. I apologize. However, in this view, you can see over here, I can see the code. This is CSS, I believe. I don't know CSS, but it looks like there's also some HTML stuff in here because I recognize the header stuff, but you can see it has classes and so on. It's using all of that code, but over here you have the output. And if I wanted to change something right there, I could, in fact, change it, and it will reflect it on the end, and then in order to keep that, I would just hit save. So if you have a typo or anything you need to correct that's on the small side, like, oh, I forgot a comma here and a reader mentioned it to me, you can just come in here and just edit it in this software without worrying about having to edit it in Word and then pull it in here and do the whole thing over again. You can just edit in here, save it, and then upload the new version if you choose to. You can use this. If you know CSS, you can also add custom CSS into this in order to accomplish certain ends, but this is how you would edit your ebook in this program should you choose to. I don't really want to save the changes. But that's pretty much it. I then take this file, I open the containing folder. That is not the containing folder. There's the containing folder, and then here's my ebook. And this is the file that I upload to Amazon or to Draft to Digital or wherever I'm uploading my file, but this is it. That is the whole process. It's pretty painless, all things considered, when you compare it to preparing for print. It is much simpler, but it does require some attention and some work. And fortunately, the Calibre software here, this is open source and free. So if you would like to use Calibre like I do, you can just download it from their website. It costs nothing. And while there are other softwares that can help generate ebooks and can generate nice looking ebooks and EPUBs, I know Scrivener does ebook generation. I know that I believe Atticus does, and I think Amazon has their own ebook creation software at this point, but all of those are pretty limiting. Whereas, for example, the Atticus and the Amazon software, you can't upload your own fonts. And that doesn't work so well if you're like me, and I really like to use specific fonts for my chapter headers. I'm a big fan of the font I have here, and I really wanted to embed that font in the book so that people could see it. And that made me really happy. If you are like me and like doing things like that, you will want a program more like Calibre because it'll allow you to do that. Whereas Atticus and some of the other ones have a very limited number of fonts and styles you can use because A, they want to make sure that you aren't using any fonts that are illegal, which is great for people who don't really have experience, but it can be really limiting once you have some. And at that point, I decided I'd rather keep doing it the way that I'd been doing it because I've been using Calibre to create ebooks for a very long time, and it is the software I'm comfortable in. Atticus does have some flexibility. It allows you to create a really nice looking ebook as well as a really nice looking print book. You can just use the same file. So if you don't want to do all of this or you don't want to typeset your book for print separately, you can, of course, pay for a software like that. And I have nothing bad to say about Atticus. It is really solid software. It just is a little bit remedial for where I'm at in my career. But I do suggest you check it out. If you are on a Mac, I know I've heard people sing praises of Vellum. I have never used it because I am a dedicated PC user, so I have no experience with Mac software. That should be pretty much everything. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions or think of anything I didn't cover, please leave it down in the comments down below, and I will get back to you soon. Thank you for your patience in waiting for this video to come out. I know it has been a while. Being sick and having a book release and having my writing conference coming up has kind of thrown my ability to focus on making videos regularly, so it's my hope to get back into it soon. But until then, I will talk to you later, and I hope you're having a great day. Take care.